This is Barbara Barrigan-Perea with Delta Flows, a radio show by the Voice of Stockton and Restore the Delta. This is the weekly radio show where we discuss everything Delta related: the environment, water management, water quality, farming, history and culture, public events, recreation, Delta food, and the arts. Tune into Delta Flows on KXVS, the Voice of Stockton, streaming live on Facebook and YouTube at KXVS Radio.
KXVS, the Voice of Stockton, live. The Voice of Stockton at Stone Soup Studio. KXVS.org.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of KXVS, the Voice of Stockton, or its parents, affiliates, management, and staff. KXVS, the Voice of Stockton. You know what that sound is. It's time for Stockton SJC, the Fugazi edition. Of course, with our City Council person for District 5, Christina Fugazi. Welcome to studio.
Thank you, thank you. Love being here, as always.
Yes, of
Came
course.
prepared.
Yes. Last year's Most Prepared Guest Award winner. Probably you're in the runnings for this year, in the lead.
I hope so.
All right, so we got a lot to talk about. So there is much business to discuss. So let's go ahead and get into it. So instead of, I'm not even going to ask any questions. I think you have the whole thing laid out. Where we
Are you
start?
promising you're not going to ask me any questions?
To start with, I'm gonna let you start, and then I'm gonna fire away once you get going.
So,
okay.
I just want to first start off by letting the public know that we're having a council meeting tomorrow. It's a special council meeting because, as you may or may not know, we reduced our council meetings to one a month. So anything in excess of that one then becomes a special council meeting. So tomorrow we're having a special council meeting at City Hall. 5:30 p.m. is when we're starting. And the discussion tomorrow all revolves around homelessness and housing.
Big topics.
One of the first items on the agenda, or the first item on the agenda, once we get into it, is actually a presentation that's happening by Caltrans. Now, you wondering why is Caltrans wanting to come speak to City Council?
Yes, and about homelessness and housing, right?
Well, you know where a majority of the homeless like to reside, which is usually under the Crosstown Freeway, correct?
Yes, that's a spot.
So that is not city-owned property. That's actually owned by the state and managed by Caltrans. So Caltrans has a proposal to use homeless to clean up the trash.
All right.
Now, I've had a number of people send me similar ideas from New Mexico or Utah, all around the United States, about the homeless themselves being hired to clean up around the city. So Caltrans is going to be doing a proposal to City Council tomorrow, and it is to do exactly that. But here's the best part of it.
Okay.
Is that it's not city funded. It's funded by the state.
Which is great.
So the state would be then paying for it and employing and doing all the work necessary in order to make that happen. Now, if you've driven down there, you'll notice that Caltrans has invested quite a bit of money under the Crosstown Freeway with new fencing. Now, when the proposal first came out, and I love Caltrans, I do, but when I first saw it, I will admit, I said, ooh, well, now it's going to be a gated community with all this really nice fencing.
Yes.
Because where there's a will, we all know there's a way.
Oh, yeah.
And so I just kind of figured that people would find their way into it, but they've done a good job of mitigating that area and keeping it clear.
Okay.
So people have said to me, well, where have the homeless gone then? Well, I'll tell you exactly where some of them have gone, which is Commerce Street between Washington and I think it's what, Market or literally, or no, actually, it's Lafayette and Washington. It's a portion of the Crosstown Freeway where a majority have gone. And this weekend, Nancy Lamb helped out a group that did a fish fry. They had people lined up to have a good meal, you know, gave water, gave out some supplies, and there were many people there that were in need. I'll just put it like that. They were in need. So Caltrans coming to us saying that, hey, we want to employ a number of these individuals to actually clean up the mess that sometimes occurs in and around areas where homeless tend to live.
Right.
And we all know that this issue is so much bigger than any of us can really wrap our heads around. I mean, there have been recent articles regarding the impact that homeless has on business as well as schools. Right. Hazelton Elementary School, which is just south of St. Mary's and the Stockton Shelter for the Homeless, that's in my district. Right. Homeless have actually been camping there at night, and they'll pack up and they'll leave before the kids get there. But sometimes they leave stuff behind. Right. And it's not the kind of stuff, I mean, you know, owners usually clean up after their dogs. But, I mean, they're leaving some stuff.
Biohazards.
Some stuff there on the playground. And imagine, you know, children running and...
Oh, it's awful.
Yeah. So I know that the cleaning crews have been getting there early just to check, because sometimes there's homeless that are rummaging through their trash cans, because you think about it, they're through their dumpsters. I mean, schools give food, and, you know, there's an expiration date, and they're mandated by law to get rid of it. And so, yeah, I used to work at a hospital. And everything was dated. I worked with the dietitian, and we had to date everything. Sure. And once it hit that D-Day...
It's gone.
Gone. And I would still eat it. I mean, if I could, I would eat it. And I remember working at Lodi Memorial Hospital saying, man, I would tell people, come, there's good eats. I'm about to throw out Jell-O or pudding or fruit that still was perfectly fine to eat, that people in other countries would love. People in our country would love.
Right, people in our neighborhood would love.
I can't stand waste. I mean, I've just always been against food waste at all possible. And so I think about things like this, and people are hungry. I mean, so what do? Well, a school dumpster might be a good place to start.
Sure. I mean, there is a tremendous, I mean, that's a whole nother subject. Tremendous amount of waste at the schools. They're literally lining kids up to throw food away.
Right. Because they can't share it.
They can't share it. Also, they don't give enough time to eat it. It's like choose to go to hang out with your friends or eat this food. You know, what are kids going to choose? You're putting the decision in their hands.
I'd eat the food, me personally, but that's me.
We're grown. Well, I'd eat the food too, especially if there's pizza.
Oh yeah. Well, I remember, you know, I used to sit when I did elementary. I would sit with my students at the table, and they would be like, "Nope, if that child doesn't eat their food, like a full milk." They didn't even open it. They didn't touch it.
Throw it away.
And they had to throw it away.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's crazy.
It's insane. It's insane. That's something that needs to be addressed. But besides that it needs to be addressed, the fact is that there's food in those dumpsters that's just waiting for anyone who knows about it knows that that's at every school. Plenty of food. You could live off of it.
Oh, yeah.
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 So that's what they're doing.
So I mean, I can't really, I mean, there's got to be a better way. Yeah. But so here's the idea of this program, and like I said, the whole evening is just going to be talking about homelessness. But this is just one of the items on the agenda. Yeah, it sounds like a good idea. It has potential, right? It's been successful in other cities. Right. I'm trying to think of some of the drawbacks. I mean, aside from maybe putting someone else out of work, but if there's a lot of work to be done, if there's a budget for it, we're not putting anyone out of work. No. We're just getting more accomplished. Right. And also helping people who really need it. Well, and we don't need to reinvent the wheel here. Yeah. If there are programs that have been repeated, you know, numerous times that have been successful. Yeah. You know, I'm not just talking about a one-shot deal, but I'm saying this has happened and been replicated in many communities across the nation, that we obviously could do it here. And the state is obviously in support of it. Otherwise, they wouldn't be making a proposal to City Council tomorrow evening.
Right. Okay. Well, that's some good news.
Yeah. The next item is we're going to have a presentation talking about blight reduction and, now this is a touchy subject, but homeless encampment cleanup. So the city allocated funds. Now, at the beginning of the allocation, which was 2 years ago, that's when former mayor had put aside funds for hand washing stations, porta potties, a portable shower. You know, he looked into all of that, and it didn't get the support it needed, but we had already allocated the funds for it.
Right.
So instead of it going for the porta potties and the hand washing and the shower, the mobile shower unit, it then went to cleanups. Now, on December 2nd, I went live on a cleanup.
Okay, so the cleanup is the sweep.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a clean out.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we have other cleanups that have happened. So they cleaned out the slough, did a great job, and 6 hours later, people were back.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, at the Anderson dead ends into the slough just west of Airport, so South Airport, on the corner you have Restoration for Life Ministries.
Right there, yes.
Cars, literally, trucks pull up, open up the back, and dump. And I witnessed somebody last Wednesday, a red Ford truck that had out-of-state plates, but we got a picture, send it to the police.
That's right. Crime Stoppers.
Pull up, and it looked like they were dumping old fencing. Man, they were running to get it. Why do you think they were running to get that old fencing?
Building material for their homes?
And firewood.
Oh, my goodness.
So, building materials, yes.
But it burns. Fencing burns.
So, Pastor Bridges and I looked, because I'm like,
what's happening?
I smell burning,
Yeah.
and it smells like fresh wood.
Yeah.
Sure enough, they had blonde, it was bleach blonde, brand new wood, didn't, change colors or anything. They were using it for a fire. And mind you, that day it was about 70 degrees last Wednesday.
Right.
I'm like, do you need to be burning wood?
Yeah.
But it's illegal to do that.
Yeah, it's cold at night still.
Well,
without shelter.
This
But
was
they're burning.
This was 3:30 in the afternoon.
So they're just, it's just like maybe like it was Christmas and they got it early, so they were so excited
It was
to have a
February
fire.
1st. Wasn't that February 1st? Anyway.
Which we know is a hot day in our new climate.
Or no, it was January 31st. It should have, anyway.
Yes,
but
yes.
Pastor Bridges and I, we made a couple calls, reported the truck doing the dumping. But down there at that juncture of the slough, they literally, it looked like they built a multi-room structure. I mean, literally all out of wood, scrap wood that they had found. And I said, you know what? Hardwood floors. I rather have a layer of wood down instead of being on the mud or shoppiness,
Right.
I'm like, I would take that fencing too and try to
Yeah.
turn it into something. And I had to sit there and think all the energy that people expend into building that, designing it and all that. And I'm like, if we could only channel that energy into a real job that made you enough money so that you could have a real place to live.
Right.
I mean,
Paying rent instead of,
well, and
living on the street.
speaking of paying rent, I'm going a little, well, it's the same topic, but, I listen to Capitol Public Radio every morning. And the other day they were talking about hospitals and how the chronic homeless, they cost hospitals 70 times.
Wow.
Not 17, but 70 times more than other people who go in to use the emergency.
Wow.
They are losing hundreds of millions of dollars because they want a place to sleep, from food to eat, a bed, whatever. And they do. I mean, living on the streets is hard.
Right.
So you're going to have some health issues.
Right.
But these hospitals, and I want to say it was in Philadelphia, I have to look it up before tomorrow's meeting. But they're putting $1,000 towards rent for these individuals that are chronically using the ER.
Wow. Because
So-
it's cheaper for them.
It's cheaper for them.
I love thinking like that. I mean, I wish we didn't have to, but there are so many instances where we could just say, you know what, what's the real bottom line? And, forget about somebody, some few people who are saying, oh, man, they're getting something for nothing, because nobody is. But the real bottom line is we could do this in a much more affordable way, provide more, and raise the standard of living for all of us.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I like that method. I like that.
And here's the deal. They do have some health problems, but when they have stable housing, they don't have the health problems they had before. And they do monthly check-ins with them. They make sure that they're getting their medication, that they're taking it. They're doing wellness checks. They're doing all of this. And as a result, like I said, they're saving millions of dollars. The hospitals are. Wow. So I thought, wow, that's an interesting concept. I mean, St. Joseph's, my dad was told to get there right away. They thought he might have had meningitis. So they put him in isolation in his own room. Thank goodness. But there was a line going out the building.
Wow.
And there were a couple people sitting outside, and my mom and I were outside waiting to get called back for my dad. And this woman was there, and she was smoking cigarettes. She said, "Oh, do you have a light?" So she could smoke her cigarette. And she was clearly, under some challenging circumstances, and she had somebody with her, but she was saying, "Oh, I need my medication. I need my medication." But it was very obvious what was going on.
Right.
And she wasn't the only one, and her friend weren't the only ones. I mean, there were several there. And you think about people who have a true medical emergency, and in St. Joseph's, they had people in gurneys lining up the halls. They put my dad in a closet.
Wow.
I mean, this itty bitty little teeny room that looked like it was a storage closet. And we were there for 5.5 hours.
Wow.
Waiting to see the doctor, and then they gave him a spinal tap. But I'm like, there has to be a better way.
Sure.
There just does. So that's something I'm going to bring up tomorrow, but I'm just thinking St. Joseph's in particular, because now that's the Kaiser Hospital.
Yeah.
I went the other day to Dameron, and there was no wait, 30 minutes in and out. I mean, it was nice.
Yeah.
But you also have respite care that's needed then afterwards when you release somebody.
Right.
And Gospel Center Rescue Mission is one of the only facilities in the area that provides that. But they don't have unlimited resources for that either.
Of
so
course.
If we had, programs like this in place, I think that, if we could, we should take advantage of it.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Again, let's look at the real bottom line. Let's look at how much we're really spending and do something, intelligently, based on, even if it isn't, it would be great if it's based on compassion, but if it's fiscally conservative to do such a thing, then let's do it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think too,
saves us money. We get more bang for our buck. Isn't that always a win?
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that there are also avenues to recoup some of that cost.
Sure.
That $1,000 a month. I mean, who's to say that, like this Caltrans program that you go out and you pick up trash. I mean, there's plenty of trash that needs picking up in this city.
Right.
Or that you paint over graffiti.
Right.
Or something along, that lines. Or you help out at the food bank or St. Mary's with food prep or something like that. But there are ways for people to give back.
Yeah.
And I think that in and of itself helps to build self-esteem and confidence in oneself that, hey, I have something to contribute to this society too. Because I think some people get so down and depression and really what's the meaning of my life?
Right.
I mean, I think about that sometimes.
Right. Imagine if you were,
destitute. I mean,
wearing the same clothes day after day and sleeping outside under cardboard boxes.
Well, and I know we gave haircuts. So the reason I got that video on December 2nd is because I was doing holiday haircuts for the homeless. And they were so grateful. I mean, everybody was beaming, from the little kids to the senior citizens. Because think about how good you feel after you've had a haircut.
Right.
You know, and so those things that we probably take for granted.
Sure.
But other people, it means so much to them.
Right.
So.
Very interesting.
So the next thing on the agenda is actually about a dwelling unit development code. Now, you might be like, dwelling unit development code?
Yeah, that's a fancy word for what?
So it's for accessory quarters. So like in-law quarters at your house. So, for example, I live on a key lot.
Okay.
So I have my backyard, and then I have another backyard.
Right.
So I have 2 backyards.
Okay.
And I have a pool house. Now, when I say pool house, it has the pump for my swimming pool that I drain during the drought. But I could.
So it's not like the Fresh Prince of Bel Air's pool house.
No, but I have cement pad back there. I could easily erect. I already have water, access to water. I could
turn it into a dwelling.
Reasonably put a dwelling back there that. I could have Tremaine's dad move in with us, not in the main house, but in his own quarters, because he still wants his independence. He plays video games. He likes yelling at the TV.
Yeah.
And says things that I don't want to hear.
Sure.
But, so what are those options? Well, guess what? Permits aren't cheap.
Mm-hmm.
So what could people do? You got to have the separation, between your property and somebody else's property. We stopped allowing people because on my block, there are homes in the front and they have apartment complexes in the back.
Yeah.
Like 2 units. The one across the street from me has 4 units. They have a upstairs, downstairs, and then they converted the garage into 2 units.
So it's like there's a separate driveway to go back there?
There's a driveway that goes all the way to the back to the property.
Okay.
So the house itself doesn't have a garage, but you go all the way back. There's unit A, unit B, and then there's a downstairs unit and an upstairs unit.
Yeah. That's back in the day. They stopped doing such a thing.
Yeah,
right?
but look what they're doing in San Francisco. They're renting the lawn to allow people to put their tent up.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But what if we could put like a legitimate housing? Because we just don't have enough housing in Stockton.
We sure don't.
And it's definitely not affordable. And I said, hey.
We could tell because it's going up faster than it should because of the lack of availability.
Well, and there's another program I'm going to talk about after this one.
All right.
But what we have to do is, you have to ensure that there's a window. You have to ensure that there's a heating element. Okay. You don't have to have air conditioning. Lord, I know that because last summer my air was out and it was all okay? Fans.
Oh, man.
Fans and a wet towel on my head.
Yikes.
But, you have to have exit, just all the standard building codes, which is why people can't just live in the garage or live in the basement. There's things that you have to have in order to be approved as a dwelling,
right.
A human dwelling. So that is item 5.3.
So there is it just a conversation about it? Or are they considering?
It's just a conversation. Yeah, okay. We're not making any decisions. If anything, we'll be directing staff to look into that because I think that kind of ties in with the idea of tiny homes.
Right. I was thinking about that.
Yeah. And I'm saying, what's going on with the tiny homes? We changed when I was on the legislative committee. We went in and changed some of the city policies, but now we have to make sure that we have the development code that goes with that.
Right.
So the two work hand in hand.
Right. One doesn't go without the other.
So I'm hoping that we have that discussion as well.
Yeah.
So talking about affordability, it's going away. I was just talking to Councilwoman Lenz tonight, and she was saying that in her line of work, sometimes they have to liquidate some of their clients' holdings or assets.
Right.
And she said they took this house, 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 1,300 square feet, appraised at like $240,000. They said, let's put it for $250,000 because it needs work or whatnot. But we figure you go a little higher and you'll get kind of where you want. All cash, $275,000.
Wow.
All cash.
All cash.
I'm just like, I live in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 1,327 square foot house. I don't want to sell, but I'm just thinking.
You don't want to sell, but if somebody dropped 350 stacks on you.
Well, it's District 5. You know, I'd have to make sure I had another place to go in, and I'm not moving in the hotel.
If this dwelling thing works out, you could just move to the next lawn.
Yeah. But anyway, you know, looking at affordable housing.
Yeah.
So
it's getting harder and harder to find.
Downtown Stockton has special circumstances for development.
Okay.
So there are a number of fees that are waived if you do development in the downtown area.
Oh, interesting.
Those fees are for that are exempt are city office space, community rec centers, libraries, police stations, street improvements, fire stations, and parkland. So they're PFFs, public facility fees. And if you're in the greater downtown area and you're doing residential, you can get all those fees waived for affordable housing.
Oh.
Well, now we're saying if you build affordable housing anywhere within the sphere of influence in the city of Stockton, we'll give you this discount as well.
Wow. So we're talking about even now, would Lathrop and areas like that even be considered?
No, well, in the city of Stockton.
Okay, so in the city. So even what about
because
like
they're already doing building in
county
Lathrop.
pockets that are within the city?
No, in the city of Stockton.
So city limits.
City limits.
And what's the phrase they use though? The
PFFs?
Yes.
So public facility fees.
Okay.
But just the ones I mentioned, city office space, community rec centers, libraries, police stations, street improvements, fire stations, and parkland.
All right.
But think about that. I mean, you have to make sure that it remains very low or low income households for a minimum of 20 years.
Okay.
But we need it.
We do need it.
We need it. When I see one bedrooms going for $1,150.
Something's wrong.
And I've said this on the show before. I mean, my house payment is $688 a month.
Right.
I'm like, what are people? How are people making it?
When we were younger and we were trying to, getting into the adult world, they told us that you have to have like 4 times your rent as income, something like that. Now people are barely having double their rent as income. So how they're making it, they're really not. They're sacrificing, and they don't have enough to go around, and it produces a bad situation just all around.
Yeah, and if you mess up your credit, if you get an eviction on your record, you're toast.
Yeah, plus it sure doesn't help area businesses when we were pricing people out of being part of the commerce.
No, which is what we talked about last time when we talked about the water bill going to the owner of the property and how they're just going to jack the rent up. And there'll be people that can pay it, because somebody wants to live in this school district or this neighborhood, or it's cheaper than the Bay Area. You'll be able to find somebody to rent it. But the people that live here, that truly live here, that need that housing, I know mothers with children that, you got 3 kids and mom, and you're getting in a 1-bedroom, and you're letting the kids have the bedroom, and mom's sleeping on the couch or the floor, or
that's super
you
common
got a kid
right
on a couch and a 2 in the bedroom or whatever. I'm just like, I feel for people. My heart breaks for people who are out there working hard, trying to make those ends meet, and there just isn't enough housing for them.
Right.
So this is an incentive for people to say, hey, I'm going to build some affordable units. I'm going to take advantage of this program, because bottom line is most people, while they might have a charitable heart when it comes to development, it's got to pencil out. You got to pay for all your contractors, your subcontractors, the plans, the materials.
And you got to cut a profit.
Yeah. I mean, because people who invest in that, they want to cut. I mean, they're not going to take 1%.
No.
I mean, there are some really good people out there, like Michael Huber, great guy. He does Habitat for Humanity.
Right.
They create housing that has like next to zero waste.
Right.
They use all of the materials. And they have a wheelbarrow. Yeah. You build a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, and all your waste fits in one wheelbarrow.
Right. They do a great job with that.
They do. And so, I mean, I'd like us to embrace more of that, because when you waste stuff, that's where you see some of your costs really start to go up.
Well, the problem is, as people seem to feel more successful, and people get the impression that we're being more successful, they measure how successful a person is by how much they waste.
Right.
And that whole mentality is off. And that's really what got us
Backwards.
in this trouble that we're in. So give me an idea of the dollar amount of fee reduction that we're talking about for somebody who wants to build affordable housing. Normally they would be paying what?
Well,
and I know you could just give me some ballparks.
$59,000.
Okay.
So it's about $59,000 for I want to say like a 1,900 square foot home.
Uh-huh.
So almost $60,000
in fees.
Yeah.
And that's going to be reduced to.
Well, we're going to hear about the program tomorrow.
Okay.
I don't
But in
have
downtown Stockton, what does it look like?
Well, that's what I'm talking. So it reduces all those fees for them. So it's kind of like our Stockton economic stimulus plan that reduced it by about $20,000.
Yeah, I remember that. Okay. So that's huge. That's a third or more.
And I'm just looking here. So.
And did you mean to jam you up?
No.
Just
this
curious,
is just the
just because I wanted to throw
resolution.
it out there. Just for people, just so to generate interest to be involved in this, because I imagine just as most city council things happen, the public's viewpoint is weighed, and the more people who are in favor of this idea of reducing this fee citywide, the more likely it will be to happen.
So in the staff report, they don't give us a specific example, but what I will tell you is that it says approximately 100 new affordable housing units by the end of next year, December 2018,
Ooh.
It could result in a loss to the city in those fees of $1.5 to $2 million
Wow.
in PFFs. So
It's a significant
100
amount.
units. So if we say 100 units divided by, 2 million divided by 100 units, that gives you your $20,000 right there.
Great. You're going to make me do math. 2 million divided by 100 units. Oh, that's easy.
Yeah. 20,000,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's easy. So
Yeah.
so developers could save $20,000 a unit if they build an affordable unit.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is a great incentive. Especially there's different parts of the city that have much cheaper land.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
so
District 5, my
Yes.
district,
There you
District
go.
6.
Yeah, District 6, plenty of low price land out there. You
Right.
could do something great
Right.
on.
Right.
The other
Yeah.
thing is when you do that, it also raises the value of the surrounding, area, because you're not tearing something down to build an affordable house. You're building something on something that nothing's going on. Mm-hmm. So you're adding to, the value of the neighborhood.
Right.
Yeah.
The next item on the agenda is the 2018 Affordable Housing Loan Program allocation. And so we had money that we allocated specifically for housing. In our budget, we had some unused funds from the previous year. So we allocated $300,000 of that to hopefully lead to more housing. And so of that $300,000, it's going to be shared between Stockton Shelter for the Homeless, the Housing Authority, and some people are like, well, why are you sharing that with the Housing Authority? Well, because they have special programs and they can leverage the funds to get more money.
Right.
And the other is for STAND, which is Stocktonians Taking Action to Neutralize Drugs. And they've done a number of wonderful projects within the city of Stockton.
Who was the first group that you mentioned?
Stockton Shelter for the Homeless.
Oh, right.
Because they house up to 400 people.
Right.
And here's the interesting thing is that, I took a lot of flack from some people for saying that the housing, not the housing, but the homeless program was increasing, or there were more numbers. Mm-hmm. And I got somebody kind of bit back at me for that and said,
Okay.
no, it's not. But it is, because we've never... Adam Cheshire, who runs fabulous director for the Stockton Shelter for the Homeless, he said we were at capacity. We had to close the doors on people that needed someone, and they sleep 400 people.
Right. So it's obviously the problem is gone.
It's getting worse. It's not getting better. But that's why we're having this meeting.
Yeah.
We're trying to implement some programs and policy in order to change the narrative on this for some people. Now, is it going to work for everybody? No. There are some people that's the life they want to live. I mean, I grew up and we called people hobos.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to say I had blinders on that I didn't see it. I did. I saw people with their knapsacks on. Hey, remember Schoolhouse Rock, where you had the hobo that they then cleaned up, gave a haircut to, and cleaned them all up?
Right.
I think he was on Conjunction Junction.
Right.
What's your function?
That's
but
right.
anyway, they converted a hobo into somebody working on the train or whatnot instead of jumping on the train to go to their next city.
Right.
But they never stayed anywhere for long. Well, now you got people that, man, this is my corner.
Right.
My tent's on this corner. I got my dogs here, or in the slough. I went down to the slough because I'd gotten a call, and man, I had these 2 dogs come after me. I was like, woohoo! I'm out of here.
So it's kind of sad. Now, it's funny, like, when we were coming up, movies like RoboCop were out and Demolition Man, and they predicted this situation. Mad Max. They predict this situation that we're going in. South Africa now, Cape Town is going to run out of water in May.
Oh yeah,
run out of water. We're a city of millions. So
they got a desalinization. They got to get that plant up and running. Convert that ocean water into drinking water.
But we got now municipalities dealing with issues that are federal issues and international issues, and this change is got to be a little more a little quicker paced.
Yeah.
I
agree.
The amount of time it takes to make a decision like that. Now in the city, we're able to be a little more nimble, but man, on the state and federal level, oh.
Right. No, you're
But we got to get moving.
But I told you, I think before, I have a friend who's from South Africa that thinks we're all cuckoo out here. She says, you let your animals live in the house with you?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
And you water the ground? And you water your cars? You wash your cars? Water is too precious.
Yeah.
You don't do that out there.
You leave the water running while you're brushing your teeth?
I mean, that's insane. Or you don't reuse the water that you're using for cooking. You can reuse that or put that in some other fashion. Like noodle water is great to put out in your yard or,
So is dishwater, actually.
Right.
Yeah, they call it gray water. You reuse your gray water. Actually, the stuff that you use to wash dishes, when it gets in the ground and breaks down, becomes a fertilizer.
Right. I mean, the nitrogen.
We wouldn't call it organic.
Right.
But, it helped them rose bushes.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Besides 300,000 going there, there's 60,000 for Habitat for Humanity.
Wonderful.
Which is the program I was talking about with Michael Huber in
one of our
South Stockton.
We love them.
Okay. Then $100,000 is going to this Link Housing Corporation. And I just want to explain it to you. So there's this group called NOAA. NOAA stands for Naturally Occurring Affordable Housing.
Huh.
Now you're going like, what's naturally occurring affordable housing? Well, that's when somebody is selling, let's say selling their apartment complex. And you got some greedy monger out there that says, yeah, I'm going to come in and buy it, put in $5,000 and jack up the rents for everybody.
Right.
Well, no. Instead of that, you find somebody who says, no, I'm going to keep the rents affordable. I'm going to buy it, keep it nice, whatever, with affordable rents. And what they get in return is they get a tax credit.
Yeah.
So instead of, you have to agree not to raise those rents, you keep the rent so the people living there can still live there.
Right.
And
you get a
tax credit. I'm like, man, I'll take that tax credit.
Yeah. Especially, if you own more than one property, it makes a big deal.
And I own a property in Lodi.
Yeah.
3-bedroom, 2.5 bath. Nice house, nice neighborhood in a development, where they mow your lawns, all that kind of stuff. Really nice. They've been living there 7 years. I have never raised their rent.
Oh, wow.
$1,250 a month. And you might go, oh, but it's a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 2-story home, front yard, backyard.
It's lower than my rent.
And people in that area, the rents are $1,700, $1,800.
Right. That's what I was going to say. That's more like it.
But why would I want to raise it? This is a man, his wife, and his children. He's been a good tenant. He takes care of anything that happens in the house. Why would I want to do that? Yeah. My house payment hasn't gone up.
Right.
I'm still making the same house payment.
Oh, there's too few landlords like you, Councilmember Fugazi. Too few. When people know they can charge more, that's when they start doing it most often. And I think that is another reason why we have to get the the leadership of the city involved, because if we'd let the market just decide, the market gave us the last crash.
Oh, yeah.
You can't just let the market decide.
Oh, yeah.
You're bound to have bubbles that are bursting. Look what the stock market's doing right now. You know, and if you don't think about it like, I mean, if people were waging their life on the stock market continuing to grow, they would be jumping out of a building today.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So next item is to hire a homeless czar. So,
Wow.
yeah, but we wouldn't be hiring the homeless czar. The county would.
Okay.
And that's a good place to have it because county has all of the behavioral, social, you know, they have all the programs there to truly help, you know, find out what the underlying issue is and work with people.
Right, right. And county would be, I mean, these issues aren't just
Right.
city issues.
So they're asking the city to pony up some money. Now, I remember when we started our new administration, and I thought that one of the positions of the new administration, I asked, is this going to be our liaison for the homeless between county and city?
You mean the $300,000 in AIDS?
Well, I had asked that question, and I was told, yeah, one of those people could be doing that job. But
What are the responsibilities of?
that's another show.
Okay.
So let's stay on track here.
All right.
Anyway, this homeless czar, the salary, I'm like, man, I need to apply for this. I think it's $179,000. Okay, yeah, they're going to be working their tail off. They better be exempt, which means they can work, 24/7.
Yeah.
If need be. $176,249. And the thing I get all the time is, well, we want the best though. So in order to get the best, we have to be willing to pay a little bit more. And so anyway, that's going to be discussed tomorrow. But the city's asked to put in a portion in order to help fund it.
Right.
But I want to know what other cities, because I realize we have the most need. And if it's just us putting the money in, then I want us to get the person more because we already put money in. We put money into the cleanups. We put money into these other agencies.
So if you're funding it, we should have some decision-making power. Right.
That person should report to us quarterly at the least to tell us their progress. We should have an ending date that says, listen, we're not doing this in perpetuity.
Right.
Because if you're not doing the job, then we're not going to pay for it.
Right. We need some
we need some
measurements.
Right, absolutely. And so we'll be talking about that tomorrow, but I want some teeth in that says, listen, these are the benchmarks, these are the goals that we have, and while you don't necessarily answer to us because you're on the board, we will have some questions for you that you can answer for us. You don't answer to us, but you better be able to answer our questions that we ask of you. And you know me, I'm going to have some questions.
Yes. And hopefully you get a chance to ask those questions. It makes a lot of sense. If we're putting a bulk of the money in, then, got to have a little bit of a say so, I think.
Yeah.
And it's not like we don't understand that is, we do need somebody to kind of spearhead this effort because there's a lot of kind of spread out stuff going on, and we need like a single point of contact.
I want to know what the plan is, what the work plan is, what their deliverables
What's the
are.
You want to be able to go to somebody when you have a question too. Hey, this thing that's happening down here, what's going on there?
Right.
I'm on it.
So and I just wanted to bring up that there was a big press conference last month about this $4.4 million, and I think I talked about it. 2.5 million of it was going to permanent housing, 1.2 million to rapid housing, 400,000 to former foster youth. Money was also going to a database management system, but the 2.5, 1.2, 400,000 for that piece, that's a reissuing of money that we already get.
Okay.
So
stuff we're used to spending already.
Yeah. But there was money in there for a homeless czar that we did not have before.
Okay.
And so I think it's important that we definitely work in collaboration. And we always talk about this collaboration, coordination, that being the key. And I went to the Board of Supervisors on more than one occasion and said, hey, we're willing to work with you. One of the things I asked for was to have some of their social workers go out with our police officers on calls that are specifically around homeless individuals, because oftentimes it might be a substance, it might be a mental health issue. And our police officers are not trained in mental health. I mean, they might.
They should be.
They might.
They should be.
But it might be a 10-hour continuing education credit or something like that.
Sure.
But somebody who has their master's, in child welfare, or something, or adult or social work or whatever.
Yeah.
Just think how more effective our systems would be if we worked together.
Definitely.
And I remember talking to Chief Jones about it. He said that would be great. But so maybe we can get there this time around with maybe the homeless czar.
Yeah.
We'll say, hey, I think that is a good idea, because we could avoid a lot of potentially hairy situations.
Sure.
If we had the proper people in place. And I know we're getting low on time, but I want to talk about one of the last pieces that we have is actually about, the mayor is proposing a task force on affordable and workforce housing. And there's a number of people on that list this is what they do for a living, is housing. So that's on there as well. But then we're having a public hearing for the city to vacate Sonora and Harrison streets around the Stockton Shelter for the Homeless and St. Mary's. Oh. And they have St. Mary's Dining Hall owns the big lot in the middle. They use it for parking for some of their... Right. But imagine if you were able to have all of that area, because where Stockton Shelter for the Homeless is, that's actually owned by the state.
Wow.
We need to negotiate like a long-term lease on that. City staff, I think, are working with Senator Kathleen Galgiani and Assemblymember Eggman on securing that. But it's going to take years for us to kind of design and implement and create something. But again, that's in my district. And like I said, just Anderson is being taken over right now because the homeless have been taken out of that area. So now they're all along the freeway on the other side, right near Tanker Wash. And that's why I said some of the homeless now, they've been impeding the work of some of our businesses. But when even in city offices, I see people sleeping in the doorway at night. Right. I see it throughout the city. Right. Where do some people go? And so, in the morning when you go to work and there's somebody sleeping there, it's not against the law to sleep in public. Right. So what do you do? Right. But if they were able to have that whole area, I don't know what it would look like. But we need to ensure the future of Stockton Shelter for the Homeless, considering that they house 400 individuals. They can up to 400 individuals.
Right. Definitely, they definitely have a big impact.
So that is a big ticket item on there. And I just want to say one more thing, because I know we're out of time. One more thing, because we didn't get to budget. Yeah,
and I go ahead, because I got one more thing too.
Okay. I've heard people say that they feel that I grandstand when I'm up on council, that I'm grandstanding. And I don't go, hey, I'm right here. This is what I ask a lot of questions because my constituents provide me with questions, and they are watching at home. They're maybe in the audience. Sometimes a question comes up during the meeting or the presentation. I write it down, but people want the answers to them. Yeah. And some people say to me, well, why didn't you ask this before the meeting? I go, even if I asked it before the meeting, there might be something else that comes up that leads me to another question off of that, or something doesn't match up. Right. And I think I have every right, not only a right, but an obligation.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
To ask those questions.
I mean, isn't that why you were elected?
Right. And it's not about me. But if you ever came to my classroom,
same thing.
You would know. It's ingrained into who I am, is to ask questions. And when I look at a presentation and it does not meet my expectations, where my answers are not answered, they're not answered in the staff report, they're not answered in the presentation, I am obligated to ask those questions and to have somebody answer them. It's
Thank
not
goodness that you do
grandstanding.
that. And, you know, it's unfortunate that there's that opinion. In fact, I think that sometimes the only time we hear the questions that we have is from you. And so I hope that the other city council members, you know, maybe, I don't know if I hope I don't offend anybody. They're all good folks, but, you know, questions are good. Have you ever heard that in class? Like, ask the questions. I haven't heard you ask a stupid question, if there is such a thing. But yeah, I think that's unfortunate, you know. And I hope people out there think about by putting that as a roadblock. That's a roadblock to the public getting answers and information. You know, even if somebody views that as grandstanding, it's still worth doing. And I've seen, you know, oh well, that's unfortunate because everyone's got haters, and you know, everyone, you know, especially people doing something significant. I mean, we you know, everyone has their fair share, right. And the people out there sticking their neck out the most, oftentimes, are the ones who get the most flack, right?
Cut off,
right?
Their head cut off.
So please don't let that discourage you from asking those great questions. I had a question that actually a lot of people I heard talking about, and I've saw it very active on social media, is something you mentioned at the beginning, reducing the number of city council meetings. Mm-hmm. Why would the city reduce the number of city council meetings? It seems like going in the opposite direction. I mean, we have a lot of work to do.
Well,
and
we do. Well, you know, one of our council members has a very, very important job. I mean, we all have important jobs, but one in particular has one of the most important jobs in Stockton. And our meetings conflict with them serving in their other capacity.
Okay.
So that council member made a request to lower the meetings, that we would have longer meetings instead of more meetings. But here's the funny thing. The other day, when we were in our priority setting meeting, one of the members of council said, well, our meetings already go too long. I mean, I don't want to be there past 8 o'clock or something like, you know, they didn't say 8 o'clock. They just said our meetings are already too long. I'm like, if we're only having one meeting a month, I'm expecting to be there till 11 o'clock at night.
Right, certainly.
Because that's when we can hear the last item is 11 o'clock at night. And when I was on the planning commission, we routinely stayed till 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And I remember when I would go to council meetings and I'd say, how are they out so quickly? I saw their agenda and all the items on there. I mean, planning commission, we got 2 things on their agenda, and we're there for 4 hours.
Right.
I'm like, how does that happen?
Well, I guess we'll see how it plays out. It's still a relatively new situation, but I would expect nothing less than midnight meetings. I mean,
well,
meetings that last to midnight.
I voted no on reducing the meetings because every Tuesday night on my calendar is blocked off for city council, a study session, a special meeting, a council meeting. I dedicate that to the public. And one of my constituents said to me, well, if you're not having a council meeting, why don't you do office hours like at the Hagen Museum? Like set up a table and chair out there or somewhere else every Tuesday when you don't have a meeting. Why don't you have office hours? And I'm like, I like that idea.
Yeah, maybe each district could have their own meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great.
So.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess not all of them. Some people are not available. But, that I thought that was rather disappointing. But, I mean, you know, we got to make do with what we got. But it seems like there might have been other alternatives. Hopefully that the meetings do go back up to more regularity. I think we have a lot of city business to attend to.
And I think the public comment should be moved to the beginning then.
Yeah.
Be moved back to the beginning.
Oh, yeah, certainly. You can't expect people to wait.
They are. And then when you call out their card and they're not there.
Right.
Because they went home. They weren't going to be there till 9, 10 o'clock at night.
Well, we'll look for those adjustments, folks. Of course, that's the time for the show, and also, just a reminder: tomorrow's city council meeting will be it's live streamed from the city's website, and we'll be picking it up as well. I want to thank you, Councilmember Christina Fugazi, District 5, for coming in. I know you always have an epic show, and I want to thank you for contributing and bringing this good information to the public, and thank you for being prepared as well.
Oh, of course.
All right. So, of course, that does it for us. You are listening to Stockton SJC right here on KXVS, the voice of Stockton. Stick around for more quality programming right here on KXVS.